We continue with Jennifer Senior, contributing editor at New York Magazine, with her cover story in this week's issue, I Love My Children, I Hate My Life. Terry in Manhattan, does that sound like you?
It definitely resonates. I'm a mom of a 14-month-old little boy who I love dearly, but I really enjoyed the article because I appreciate anyone speaking about how having a baby is not all rainbows and roses. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, especially the first few months, and I'm envious of my single, childless friends who can just decide at the last minute to go out to dinner without bringing the cavalry or seeing a movie without tacking $50 onto the night's expenses. But I have paid a lot of attention to all of these studies about happiness, and it's made me think about how you define happiness. And I have to wonder if it's a New York thing or if it's a generational thing about people expecting to be happy and fulfilled to the limit every day of their lives. And one thing having a child has taught me is to be really cognizant of the joy that you find in the small things and moment to moment, and also how much work it takes to maintain a healthy relationship with your spouse and to really appreciate the gifts you've been given. But one thing that is really sticking out to me is the comments page. Her talking to the people in Denmark about how much happier they were because of this social support network made me wonder if we had that kind of thing in the United States, you wouldn't have these condescending, violent conversations after an article about bringing babies to bars, or people feel pitying someone because they do or they don't have children. I hate the us versus them that I was never aware of before I became a parent.
Great call, Terry, and
Brava.
And stay here because Jennifer, she raises a number of questions. One
Wonderful
of them
ones,
is
all of them.
She's really questioning our definition of happiness and how easily we accept a definition of happiness that has to do with kind of relaxed leisure at the moment.
Absolutely. And that was what I was getting at, that distinction before, as opposed to things that give you purpose, right, and gratification and reward. I mean, I think if you want to take a really extreme example of this, if you asked my grandfather, did you like being seasick? He'd say no. Did you like being hungry all the time? No. Did you like not having the full use of your arm throughout the rest of your life? No. Were you happy you fought in the Pacific in World War II? Yes. Would you have done it again? Yes. I mean, there are things that we do that make us not only, that aren't only a mixed bag, but they're unambiguously miserable. They're huge sacrifices. Yet at the end of one's life, you know what you want your life to mean, right? And I don't mean in any way to compare raising a child, but I'm just saying, we have to be careful what instruments we use to define, meaning in our lives.
Yeah.
Right?
And on the cultural differences, when she talks about Scandinavia, was that in your article?
It was in my article. Yeah, I know. It was. Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of comments about it too. But yes, that the one study that showed that people were happier was done on Danish subjects, where they have extremely generous policies, by the state. You get lots of maternity leave, you get subsidized child care, you get it's free universities and free health care for the rest of your life, right?
But it's so cold.
It's cold, undeniably. But okay, you know what? France. Mothers enjoy raising their children more in France, where they also have a more generous, and in fact, generally states that have more kind of assistance for parents. Parents wind up being happier. It does, and I think indeed they have more children even in those states. So that's something just to go back, I thought that one of the things she said that was very interesting was also the generational piece, because the fact is, with each successive generation, it seems that parents have gotten less and less happy. This was the research done by a woman named Jean Twenge, who has written about narcissism. She's out at UCSD. And her point is very interesting, which is that the generations now, we have deferred child rearing so that we have a really strong sense of what it was like before having a kid and what it's like after having a kid. And the contrast is very extreme. If you've had this freewheeling life in your 20s where you can do and go as you please, and, it's very different to then suddenly have your wings clipped and, as you say, suddenly have to pay $50 to go see a movie, yeah.
Terry, you want to follow up?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is generational. I mean, I go to my mother with these existential questions and crises I'm having about staying at home versus working, and what's the purpose of all of this? And she just rolls her eyes and says, you know, if things don't suck most of the time in your life, you've got it better than most of the world's population.
That's right. You're not supposed to be happy, right? Like this, where did we get this idea that children were there to make us happy?